Okay, let's talk more about the Henry Dinkins murder trial. I want to start off by saying this little girl was not only not protected, she was delivered to this dude on a silver platter. We've already discussed the fact that he was already a registered offender. Now, some people are saying he violated a 5-year-old girl. I have not found any proof on that. I showed you guys where I looked up his case that he had back in 1990, where he violated a girl violently, right? Now, Henry Dinkins decided upon a bench trial. In a bench trial, a judge hears the evidence, determines the facts, and considers the legal issues that arise, and decides whether a defendant is guilty or not guilty. So there's no jury involved. But the same procedural and evidentiary rules apply to bench trials as they do to jury trials. Okay. Why he chose the bench trial, we can only assume that he thought it would be, it would be something that would be more beneficial to him. Bench trials are more efficient. They generally lead to quicker resolutions. There's no jury selection process. The court doesn't have to explain the relevant law to a jury. It flows more smoothly because a judge can discuss any issues with the parties as they arise rather than sending a jury out each time. Because anytime they have something that comes up, somebody says something they shouldn't say, blah, 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 the judge may have to have the jury step out so they can discuss it. Now, this is an advantage, but that's dependent upon your unique situation. There's a caveat, right? Some defendants assume a bench trial is better because of the time factor. They just want to get back to their lives. And I'm pretty sure that's how Henry is looking at this. We can tell from the way he's been acting this entire time. But, this line of reasoning may lead you in the wrong direction. Efficiency is better in some respects, but in others, it may not be. Now, a defendant may elect for a bench trial because judges can apply the law in a more neutral and dispassionate way. They give their professional experience and they can set aside any potential bias. This is their job. This is their profession. They're trained to do that. Jury are people just like you and I. They have all kind of different feelings and opinions and have not had formal training on how to just stick with the law, even though they're told to. And it may be preferable to have a bench trial if the case is high profile and it's attracted a wide press coverage. You don't have people on the jury who may be influenced by what they've seen or heard. A judge can set aside any potential damaging, inadmissible information that may arise during the jury trial. That's his job. He's trained to do that. He's been doing it for years. He knows how to do that. It can be more difficult for jurors to disregard this information once they've heard it, even if they're told to do so. Now, bench trials are also considered more predictable. The parties can understand a judge's position on a legal issue before the trial starts based on previous rulings. You look at their case history in relevant cases and you see how they ruled on those cases. And if you're lucky, you can listen to some of their rulings if it's made available to you, and you can hear their thoughts and opinions on it. So you'll have an idea of how they might look at your case, right? You can also look at their pretrial motions and how they decide on those. Now, the only opportunity to gauge a juror's position is during voir dire. A bench trial may be preferable when a case involves technical legal arguments. A judge has expert knowledge of the law and can understand and apply complex legal concepts, and a jury may, find it a little challenging to do so. That's generally not their area of expertise. Okay. But, you have disadvantages. Two significant disadvantages should make a person think twice about a bench trial in criminal situations. Only the judge gets to decide as opposed to a 12-member jury. Thus, your fate is set in just one set of hands versus 12. In a jury trial, if one person disagrees and believes you're innocent, that may be all you need for a hung jury. In a bench trial, the prosecutor only needs to convince one person that you are guilty beyond reasonable doubt. A judge understands that better. The judge is familiar with all the evidence. A jury may not be privy to all the evidence. And there's different reasons why this happens in almost all cases. But a judge may be able to be unbiased, but that can only go so far. They're ultimate deciders on what evidence is admitted. So there may be prejudicial or unreliable evidence or evidence obtained unlawfully because of any other lather. The evidence is excluded. When you're defending yourself before a jury, it's important because they may never know about this evidence, but the judge knows everything there is to know about the evidence. No matter how the judge may try, that evidence can impact the final outcome. Okay? Now, Henry as we know, is on trial for the kidnapping and murder of Breasia Terrell. She was 10 years old. She left from her grandmother's house with him, and her brother went to go stay. I guess they were staying the night. They were really, if you listen to this, because I'm still listening to the trial. If you listen to the trial, no one has an exact planned time of how long they truly were supposed to stay with him. This was kind of done on a whim. Okay? Breasia's mother knew Henry. She met him when Breasia was about 2 months. She was about 18. She had another son. She dated him for a year to 2 years, they say. And they had Breasia's younger brother. Henry was then, according to Breasia's mother, 19 years older than her, even though he told her he was only 21. Now, Henry looks a lot older than he is now. He's 51 years old, okay? If you guys go back to him and how he looks, you will have to note that this dude is only 51 years old. I'm going to assume he didn't look 21 at that time. He doesn't seem like he is the type of person that, was, in top shape and took care of himself and all that. So I don't see him looking 21 when he's actually significantly older than that. Not at all. But he was a sex offender. Registered. On paper and online. It's almost impossible for her to know that. Even if she didn't know that, it was her job to find out. She should have vetted this guy before she brought him into her life. She already had 2 children, especially a little girl. And then she had another child with him. Now, this is in eastern Iowa. He's been charged with first-degree murder. in the death of Breasia Terrell. He was named a person of interest almost immediately, and although his lawyer is trying to make it seem like that was unjust, it was within reason. We saw plenty of evidence to show that this guy clearly looked guilty, even outside of the fact that we can ascertain that it doesn't make sense for him to not know where she was when he was the last one who was in the care of her. And he was up and around and about early that morning. Okay. Now, Andrea, who is Dinkins' girlfriend and who was there with them in that small one-bedroom apartment, also know that Henry was the last person to see Breasia. But as we also saw when the cops came, she pretended as if she didn't understand basically what time of day it was, much less anything else. Okay? Now the prosecutors state that Dinkins shot and killed Breasia when she and her half-brother, which is Dinkins' son, were staying overnight at his apartment last summer. Okay. She used his cell phone to text her mother goodnight. Or did she? Because that text they found in his phone, they questioned him about it. He said she texted her mother goodnight. She possibly did. Because we believe that, she didn't go missing until around 3 a.m. Her remains, she was missing July 9th or 10th. Her remains wasn't found until March of the next year. She has dreadlocks. There were some shells in her hair, and we know when you pass away, your hair typically does not fall off, and I believe it doesn't stop growing either. Nails, all of that. Isn't that something? And they found 3 bullets lodged in her body, including one in her jaw, right up under a tooth that had not even come in yet. This was a baby. Okay? This was a 9-month investigation. Someone in Dinkins' jail cell said they would never find the body. That's very arrogant of him to assume that. I guess he thought he covered all his tracks and they would never know to look in that area. However, as we know, one thing that helped out significantly is he took out his battery in his phone so he couldn't be pinged. He knew to do that. But when he went to Walmart to get bleach with his son, he went back to the house that morning and got his son. And he took his son to different places, but he took him to Walmart in that area to get some bleach. His cell phone pinged shortly in that area. And we know that that's because his son put the battery back in so he could play the game on the phone, because Henry was going here and there and leaving him in the car. With that ping, they were able to look at surveillance and see Henry standing outside waiting to get in. I assume Walmart hasn't opened yet. Typically, if they're not 24 hours, they open at 6, but this was also during the vid, so it could have been different. We see others in line wearing a mask. He wasn't wearing one. We also saw surveillance of him going inside and buying the bleach. Okay. Breasia's brother testified to him using that bleach. He had a knife. He had a gun, according to Breasia's brother. He shot Breasia. According to her brother, he used the knife in some way and he cleaned off the knife with bleach and a rag and put it back into his RV, which they did find the knife in his RV. Right? Now, when he was 18, he pled guilty to third-degree sexual abuse. This was back in 1990. Now, I'm looking at the Des Moines Register right now. Okay? And this is saying that yes, it was a 5-year-old little girl. And he was 17 at the time. I just want y'all to sit with that for a second. 5 years old and he was 17. He was originally charged with second-degree sexual abuse, but was sentenced to 10 years in prison on the lesser charge. Now, days after her disappearance, he was jailed on charges that he violated the offender registry requirements by failing to update his address. This is another thing that significantly hurts him in this particular trial. He pled not guilty to those 3 sex offender registration violations, and he was supposed to stand trial. But at a hearing, he waived his right to a speedy trial and asked the court to allow him to represent himself with an appointed standby counsel assisting him. Dinkins' previous attorney, Jack Dustimmer, told the court that he was very concerned that anything Dinkins said during the trial could be used against him in his new murder case. We heard him speak. We heard him on the surveillance on the cops' dash cam or body cam. We heard him in his interrogation. He is not the person that we would think should be speaking for himself. I don't think he should be speaking at all, because he sounds like he hasn't graduated past 12 years old, which is interesting. Now, the state plans on seeking habitual offender enhanced sentencing for Dinkins based on those charges and past felony convictions, according to court documents. Okay. Dinkins was being evasive about his address, which in itself is a direct violation of his status. Okay. So, this is Iowa codes. If you are an offender, you're required to appear in person to register with the sheriff of each county where the offender has a residence, maintains employment, or is in attendance as a student within 5 business days of being required to register. That's usually upon sentencing. A county sheriff is also required to accept the registration of any person who is required to register in the county. An offender who registers is required to provide relevant information, including date of birth, passport, immigration documents, government-issued driver's license, a non-operator's identification card, which is an ID, a DNA sample, and other specified information. In addition, if another state requires registration, the offender is required to register in the other state within 5 business days of establishing a residence, employment, or attendance as a student in another state. Now, there are numerous instances where a change of relevant information triggers a requirement to notify the county sheriff of the particular change. If a sex offender changes residence, employment, or attendance as a student, then the offender is required to appear in person to notify the sheriff of each county where a change has occurred within 5 business days of the change. If the offender is going to stay away from the principal residence more than 5 days, the offender must notify in person the sheriff of the county where the principal place of residence is maintained within 5 days of being away from the principal residence. They repeatedly asked Dinkins what his address was. He told the cop when he got there, I don't know my address. He asked him, does he live there with his girlfriend? He said, no, sometimes they just friends. He be there. Being elusive, but not direct. He's required by law to give them exactly where he lives and be clear about that, and it should be on his registry, and we know it wasn't. When he went in for questioning, he was doing the same thing, being evasive about other things too, but definitely where he lived at. He tried to describe it, but he said he didn't know his address. Now, a regular person won't do that. A person who is a non-offender, if they ask them their address and they're willing to provide it, or they have to provide it under law, given the situation, they will provide it. They'll tell them, or they'll pull out their ID. Henry didn't even do that. And he is required by law to give it. Okay? Ain't no telling what lies he told to the grandmother, the mother, or his girlfriend about himself, his past, and his present. But as grown women, they have a duty to not only protect themselves, but any children that they have custody or care for. So they need to check out these dudes that they're having around them and make it clear that they're going to be paying attention to what's going on with that child at all times. These women could care less, and even worse. Now, an offender is required to periodically verify relevant information with the county sheriff of the county where the principal place of residence is maintained, even if no change to the offender's relevant information has occurred. Did you hear that? Dinkins didn't do that. Wherever he had his RV at, we all know that they did not even know he was an offender. Now, here is something that is disturbing. In Iowa, y'all need to do your job. And I'm talking about the citizens, because this is law. Firstly, the state should be charging Andrea, Breage's mother, and Breage's grandmother child endangerment at minimum. We know Andrea is lying, but what she does admit is that she saw Breasia by his car at 3 a.m. and he came in and went down and he left. So that leaves everybody to assume she left with him. Where else is she going to go at 3 a.m. but get in his car and go? His defender, guys, is a public defender. But he is a good attorney, and he is required to do his job. He's doing a great job, in my opinion, given that he really doesn't have much to work with. There isn't much of a defense. We heard this defender try to associate the possibility of others being involved with Breage's murder and disappearance. And he tried to suggest that they did not look into those possibles. He suggested that they didn't look into the possibility of Andrea being responsible as she was there. They explained that. They checked her out. She didn't have any activity that even took her outside of the house. Henry did during those hours. They checked out potential people in relation to her that she could have been in contact with. Nothing came up, nothing panned out. The defense even suggested that there was another case that could have been also potentially linked to Breasia. There was another man who he said the name began with a C and ended with a J. Now, I found this interesting because he stated this after asking them about Breasia's older brother, saying that there was a case they're actively working on, and it was with CJ, the initials they're using for her older brother, and then that could have potentially been a lead, but they didn't pursue it. The answer was that someone was working on a case with CJ. And basically, he was not found to be a suspect in that case. Now, when the prosecution gave an objection to that line of questioning and the judge sustained, meaning he agrees with that objection, the defense immediately went to someone, I can't remember the name, but he called the name and their initials were the same as Breasia's brother. And he talked about them finding a white car. It was not a Mustang or something. And they had a white T in it and another T with blood on it. And there was another murder in the area or whatever. And he asked them if they tested the blood to see if it was Breasia's. The answer was, and I'm not living with all this, y'all, there was several people working on this case, even someone who is now retired, but the FBI was also involved, so there were many heads, and they all had different areas to work on, and some worked on some of the same areas, and that shirt was considered, and it was later tested, didn't have Breasia's DNA. The defense also went in to say, y'all checked the Impala, which is Henry's car, very thoroughly. You didn't find any DNA in there of Breasia's or in the RV. And the answer was, actually, we didn't, even though we know she'd been in that car, right? She rode there from when he picked her up and potentially at 3 a.m. We know for a fact she was in that car and found no DNA. So you're not saying much by saying there was no DNA there. Because mind you, she was in that car. And let's all keep in mind that this is over a year later. They're searching the car as well. Henry clearly thought that he was clever with what he did. He clearly thought he was going to get away with it. He had the audacity to think so because it was so easy for him to get access to Breasia. The grandmother just let her go even though she told her, Breasia not to go. Henry took it up on himself to take her anyway. The grandmother did not even call the mom to let her know. And why? They were happy to see them go. They didn't care. And she knew the mother wouldn't care, and she'd rather not be bothered during her work shift just to tell her that. The grandmother waited until the mother called her, like on break, and then she told her that. And the mother herself said her response was, "Good, I need a break anyway." Ma'am, you got your break. It's a permanent one from at least the one child you said you needed a break from. Even if she was speaking about both of them, that response was in direct response to Breasia going, you got your break. Your only girl, your twin, you got your break. The mother went over there after she got off work and brought them clothes. Didn't even go inside. Didn't look around. Didn't check out where they're going to sleep. Who's all going to be there. She didn't find out nothing about the neighborhood. She didn't see if there were any offenders living right next door. Oh, she didn't even care about Dinkins being an offender. The mother saw Dinkins at a gas station, and she had her children with her. She hadn't seen Dinkins before that in a long time. because he was in jail again for whatever. He has plenty of mugshots online. He's a criminal. That day, her concern was, when are you going to come spend time with your son? Give me a little break. And he was like, heck yeah. Because standing right there is Breasia. And that's an interest of his. That's what he does. He hadn't seen her in a while. She's a little older. He already knew what he wanted to do. And he knew this would be easy. The mother is giving them away. They talked about it. He said he was going to come by and get his son. He knew the mom was going to be at work. She said, go pick him up from my mother's house. He went over there. The grandmother said, Breasia, you're not supposed to go. You can't go. And Henry said, come on, Bray. And she got in the car. Now, we heard Breasia's brother testify. He ain't really been around this dude. He didn't know where he was going. Him and his sister thick as thieves. And he felt more comfortable with his sister going there, so he wanted her to go. So we know she gonna go to protect her older brother and make him feel comfortable and safe. And that's what she did. But it was up to the mother and the grandmother to say, this is not a good idea. And if the son of Henry isn't quite yet comfortable with going by himself, maybe you should wait. Spend time with him. Come over, hang out, go to the local park, play ball, go to a fun or something, a jumpy place, and start from there. They didn't do none of that. They let that girl go. Now, a sex offender doesn't necessarily stay on registration forever. It says right here, generally, the duration of the registration for an offender is 10 years. 10 years has passed since Henry was officially charged. He was 17 when it happened, 18 when he got convicted, and he is now, some say 48, some say 51, but we saw his birth date. He's 51, 52. 10 years has passed, but he's still required to be registered. Other durations apply for special sentences. We went over his particular case. I think that qualifies. Okay, he had a level 3, which means this, what we now know, according to the Des Moines Register, was a 5-year-old girl. He was violent with her and caused her harm. She was 5. She was 5. A 5-year-old can be feisty, full of energy, and if they're going to try and fight you off, they will. But to violently hurt them, the act itself is doing that. But in addition to that, he violently hurt her. Can you imagine Breasia at 10 years old? Athlete, playing ball, confident. She may have initially wanted to protect her brother when he was taking her away. But once he made it clear what he wanted to do to her, I think it's safe to say she fought. So if he was violent with a 5-year-old, well, we see what happened what he did with Breasia. So if there is a violation of the registry requirement, then the offender is required to stay on longer than 10 years. We know he violated several times because he went back to jail several times. And I'm pretty sure he probably was failing to register then. I can just imagine he had a person who was looking over him who probably kept giving him chances, like hearing, you're supposed to come in, and he just talking in circles. That should never be allowed. I know when people are on parole, generally, sometimes they kind of cut them some slack. They know they coming from a mindset, they coming from prison, they adjusting. But when we tell you to get your butt in here, we tell you to do something, you need to do it. Okay, you violate again, I'm going to send you back. Those sort of things. And I think to a degree we can understand that. But I think that should never be allowed with an offender. That's something that needs to change. Any violation, not zero tolerance. An offender having to only basically register for 10 years is not okay. That should be for life, automatically, no matter what. Should they ever be let out? I don't think so. Not unless they have castration. And even with castration, this is a mental thing as well. It's not only about their phallus. It's also about some other sick stuff. If you have forensic psychology and you understand the sickness behind somebody wanting to violate another person. So that mentality and that animal urge will still be there. And they may not be able to do with their phallus, say they're castrated in some kind of way, but they will. We hear it happens. People get sodomized and other things. And we know of plenty of cases where offenders sometimes just kill the children without even doing that. And they have a string of them. And some they do other things with, and some they do different things with. 10 years is insane. Once someone decides they want to violate a child, they should be deemed never again appropriate to be in society. And they should be chemically or somehow castrated. That's not far-fetched. They do it to people who haven't been offenders without their consent. You want to look that up? You want to do your research on that? There are women in prison, even, who they're making sterile, who are trying to fight against that. They do it to men, they do it to women. Okay, y'all better take a closer look. So for them to not even make it automatic that it happens to an offender, I don't care what nobody say, I don't care who you know that offended. There is no rehabilitation for something so sick and sinister. It's not even worth taking a chance. Once you have done something like that, you do not even deserve the thought of a chance. Yet they keep releasing these people, and I say that lightly, back into society. So the offender has a civil commitment. If a court or jury determines beyond a reasonable doubt that an individual meets the definition of a sexually violent predator, then that individual is committed to the care, custody, and control of the Department of Human Services until such time the person is safe to be placed in a transitional release program or discharged from being labeled an offender. Okay, and you can see the codes here to break that down. There should be no discharge. Any city or state that has this needs to be changed. There should be no discharge. We cannot show more care and compassion for those who are willing to violate and even kill children. That is not a small thing. That is not a light thing. To even touch without their permission or coerce their permission. To even touch is something that changes and scars the victim for life. There should be no release. If that is something you're capable of conjuring up in your mind and having a desire for and going forward with it, we need to have tougher laws. We don't have tougher laws is because we don't fight and demand for them to be. There are people who gladly and freely violate children, who are also in charge of making these decisions in a lot of cases, who also can have a greater effect than just your average citizen on these decisions in a lot of cases. And we know this because we have social media now. We've been talking about this for a long time. And we allow these lenient laws for these people. And then we don't hold our own selves accountable for fighting for these children. If we are not here for children, who are we here for? Because I'm confused. I'm confused. We're passing through, and they're coming along so that they can pass through. We're supposed to make that passage as healthy and safe for them as possible. We aren't doing that when we allow these lenient laws to allow an offender to be transitioned and released and to have at minimum 10 years only on the registry, as if they change. Y'all remember that case I told you about? I'm going to do an official story on that case with this dude, 79, I think, messed with a little girl for years while he was with her mom, and she finally got ordered and told, and they were going to court, and he wanted to eliminate her before court. And the day of court, he went to her apartment complex to do so, even told her he was going to do it, and he eliminated the wrong girl or woman. 70, almost 80 years old. If you're a monster, you're a monster. Okay? So it says the General Assembly repealed and rewrote Iowa's requirements under the Iowa Code, and it has the codes here, for a comprehensive description of Iowa's registry law. See the legislative guide on the sex offender registry law. Now, you guys should be looking into this. They did what? I wonder if they made it more lenient. These are things y'all need to be keeping up with. And you need to be keeping up with your local politicians that are making these decisions. Who's initiating these laws? And who's all agreeing with them for them to be passed? Who's not advocating for tougher laws? Probably some of the same people who have some same involvements, or some of the same people who know of people who do this, and they're like Andrea. They aid and abet, defend, and say nothing. This information can be easily found online. Okay? Easily found online. It says the publication may be accessed via the internet from the Iowa General Assembly internet site. Here's the address. I don't even live in Iowa. Y'all talking about this case, but do we talk about and take action for preventing possibly this happening to another child? Any person convicted of an offense in this state who is required to register in another jurisdiction under the jurisdiction's offender registry is required to register in that state. And if the offender, now this is problematic, who is required to register in another state? They're saying if you are convicted in this state, and if that state has a law that says if you're convicted in another state and you come here, you got to register here too. That tells you all states, this is not mandatory. It doesn't say wherever you go around the world, you got to be registered, you got to check in. Don't say that. It says if that state also requires you to register. Guys can just move to another state. So if they're required, they're supposed to. An offender who is incarcerated is not required to register. Now this applies to Henry. He did before, but he didn't. He's incarcerated now. It says, but the running of the period of registration is told when the offender is incarcerated. Conviction of more than one offense prosecuted within a single indictment is considered a single offense for the purpose of registration. Conviction of more than one offense prosecuted within a single indictment is considered a single offense for purposes of registration. I don't know about y'all, but I will want that to change. I've seen this too many times. Well, my daughter didn't get justice in her name, but we still got justice because he was convicted for the other one. So at least he has the punishment. He has that on his jacket. He's getting one set of punishment for multiple crimes if that's the case. Technically, we don't know if there was an additional case with Henry. If he had more than one offense, they can choose, and they do choose. I'm sorry, not can, but they do. This is what they're saying here. This is the law. To put it on one, and they only mention one. Do you guys think? Because there are people out there that may say, okay, you did it once, you learned your lesson, blah, blah, blah. To me, that makes no sense, but don't act like people won't do that. And the person can say, yeah, you know that I was young, this, that, she lied, blah, blah, blah. They can say whatever. And little do we know it was 5 times. That 5-year-old little girl probably isn't the only case they had against him. Without thorough research, you may never know. It's considered one single indictment and a single offense. Each offender convicted of an offense is classified as either tier 1, 2, or 3 offender, and the tiers contain offenses that are in ascending order of severity. 3 is the highest. Thus, a tier 1 offender has committed a less serious offense than tier 2 or 3, and we know he's a tier 3. It was very bad for the 5-year-old. Is she alive? Without research, we don't know. She could have passed away later. She could have committed suicide. She could have died from some injuries, anything. And they could have decided not to charge him for that due to good defense and technicalities, or the family not pursuing it. But one thing we know for sure, he definitely damaged her. And she likely wasn't the only one at the time. These things need to change. So, if you're an offender and you violate the requirements of the Iowa Code, you knowingly provide false information, you're in exclusion zones and prohibited employment, you're not abiding by your residency restrictions. We know he did all that. We saw him clearly on camera. He was around the children. He picked up the children on his own by himself. And he in the residence apartments, them people don't even know. We know his children there. Or have an employment where the dependent adult resides. We don't know where this 5-year-old girl is, and he get to go everywhere. If you commit an aggravated misdemeanor for a first offense and a Class D felony for a second or subsequent offense, in addition to any other penalty provided by law, an offender who has been convicted of an aggravated offense against a minor, a sex offense against a minor, or a C felony, the court cannot defer judgment or sentence of a conviction for a violation of the offender registry laws. What this is saying, in Henry's case, clearly he committed a C felony. Okay, that murder charge is a C felony. It is also an aggravated offense against a minor. It is a sex offense against a minor that they're trying to, make stick. The sex part. They cannot defer judgment or sentencing of a conviction for his violation. So that violation that he was recently arrested for, it's not possible for him to get out of it. Okay. So I'll say again that he has a court-appointed attorney, in case people don't realize that. Chump didn't have no job. I'm pretty sure his girlfriend was doing a lot. He's driving her cars like they his. And he got his little RV off somewhere, hiding. Plotting. It's hard to imagine what he's been doing all this time that people don't know is attached to him. Having that RV off, having a girl that don't ask him questions, let him go off and come back and do whatever, look suspicious, and still don't question, don't trust her instinct. That woman said she woke up and saw Breasia gone, and she got a sick feeling in her stomach because she knew he was lusting after that girl. Her brother knew he was lusting after that girl. Now, at one point in March, he was saying he was going to file to represent himself after he made a second request for a new attorney. Now, I read y'all about his previous attorneys. He had the wife and husband duo, very good lawyers. He was refusing to cooperate with his lawyers. And even this lawyer he tried to get another one, and the judge said, no, you got a good lawyer, communicate, you're not communicating. And I'm pretty sure these lawyers was telling Henry things he didn't want to hear, like, bro, you guilty. You need to take a plea deal. I don't even know if there's an option for a plea deal in a situation like this. It shouldn't be. That's something that needs to be looked into, because it shouldn't be. But I'm pretty sure they was just like, imagine him when he was being questioned. Imagine how he acted when the cop came. He walked away, took him to the door, walked away, and the officer's like, well, what's her name? She'll let you in. And he left. When he got in there and the officer was calling him, and he called the officer back. I'm here now. He said, well, you got any information for us? Well, he started going off. What information? What information? And the other officers was like, well, we about to question him. Well, this officer, as we all can see, actually cared. And he was out there and he was trying to look for her and he wasn't getting nothing from them. And he wanted something to help him while he out there looking. Y'all could talk all day, but right now I'm out here looking for this girl. Do you have any information? What information is there to give? And then he kept saying, my own daughter, I raised her. And the mother allowed that narrative. And she even, what in her sick mind makes her think that he raised her? He was around her when she was a baby for a short time, and I doubt he was consistent. He was there long enough to get that woman pregnant, and then their relationship was over. And he was out there in them streets. He didn't raise her. But being that her own daddy isn't there, and that woman doesn't have any other strong male figures to take place, that's the daddy she allowed to be for her daughter. In her daughter's mind. She said in court, yeah, she looked at him like a father figure. What else father figure did you give her? This is what you showed her. So, mind you, he already had a tense situation with the judge. Okay? I don't know if y'all saw the video for that. Let me see if they have it here, if this is the video. Because he was saying yet again he wanted another attorney. And the judge was saying, you need to cooperate with your attorney. And he was saying, well, I'll just defend myself. They kill me with these ads. We're going to wait it out and see. Okay, so now I'm not getting any volume.
In July of 2020. Dinkins was in court this afternoon for a hearing. Good evening, everyone. I'm Morgan OTA, and TV6's Darby Sparks, also in the courtroom. She joins us now. Darby, this is Dinkins' second request for a new lawyer. That is correct, Morgan. The courtroom was tense today as Judge Henry...
Now, why did he request for a new lawyer 2 times? And I looked up both sets of attorneys, and they pretty good, and even to be public defenders, because they're not public defenders aren't always just public defenders. They also do other cases, paid cases. So they're gonna be lawyers regardless. It's just gonna be different if they're being a public, and don't let nobody tell you different. But there's a different incentive when you're getting paid. Okay. One thing I can tell y'all about this attorney I'm watching. This morning I started watching some more. This case went on for 2 weeks? It's very long hours. And I'm looking at him, and although I can hear him doing a good job as I'm moving about or whatever, he's doing a good job, all things considered. Given a little lack of evidence, whatever he can grab, he's grabbing. And he's not just grabbing at thin air. He's grabbing at things that could potentially, if this was a jury trial, Henry would have been sweet. I ain't gonna lie. Because the jury, I wouldn't feel confident in a jury finding him guilty with the lawyer placing so much reasonable doubt, even though he getting shot down with it every step and turn. He is. And it's like, you're going to try anything, but he got to. You don't have no other choice. He has to do his job. And we do not want Henry to be able to say, and he going to do it, he going to try, that he wasn't properly represented. So that should be a cause for his appeal to be approved as a judgment, because he gets an appeal regardless. Okay. He already tried to get it acquitted. Remember? So he going for that appeal. This guy does not think he should be in jail. He does not think he should be held accountable at all. And everything shows him guilty. Everything. He is dumb for getting a bench trial. That judge sees clearly that he is guilty. Every move he made, every action he took shows that he was guilty. This judge has been serving. He understands that this dude evaded being registered and on the radar so he could sneak around and mess with children. And imagine being in a child's life for a short period of time while they're a baby, and the mother and the children getting away from this guy by happenstance, and then as soon as she see him, she hand him right off to him, and this is what he does to her daughter. Has he eliminated a child before? I'm thinking he did. Did he plan on doing this with her? I believe he did. The courts believe he did. I don't know if I said it in any of my videos or went over it in any of my videos, but I read some information that shows that he is being charged in the manner of he intended on killing her, and that's what that first-degree murder charge technically is. Okay.
Latham appeared to have had enough. On February 3rd, Dinkins wrote the judge requesting to get a new attorney because he said his attorney Miguel Puentes was not communicating with him enough. Judge Latham denied the request and ruled that Puentes was to have weekly phone calls with Dinkins.
Do you think Dinkins will communicate well with anybody? When we see him in court now, he seemed like he's pretty involved out with the case. I started looking, I said, is this the same dude? He been sitting in court. He been sitting in jail. How can I get out of this? Going probably to the law library and everything. That boy read a book. Do you see him writing down questions to ask? Who was that? I think Andrea. He was, the defense attorney was just, he really didn't have nothing because it's clear as day. With every testimony, the most he could mess with was the son. And it's unfortunate, but I think we all can understand how he had plenty of room to mess with that testimony. But everybody else, he can only try. I think it was the girlfriend, though. He was writing down questions for his lawyer. His lawyer had nothing, really. And he was writing down questions for him to continue to ask her. And it just wasn't working. It just boiled down to the fact that now she's saying he saw her, she was up. He thought he was asleep. She was asleep. He tried to creep in slowly and quietly with his key. But she was up. She didn't, that woman ain't even probably go to sleep. She tried to act like with the cop that she just woke up after everybody. That woman been up. She been up all night long because she saw him lusting after that girl. The brother said he sat in the living room while Dinkins was in the room with the girl, giving her all the attention. And in other times, he was just sitting there staring at her. That woman knew exactly what he wanted to do. And the moment he got up from that air mattress, I don't believe his big fat blubber. I don't. Okay, they say him and Andrea slept in the living room on the air mattress. I'm gonna be civil, y'all. I'm gonna try. The moment, first of all, you can get up off no air mattress with nobody else, and they don't feel it and wake them up. She didn't sleep that hard. She do AT&T calls at home. Okay, no gym, no yard work, no nothing. And as soon as he got up and that air started moving around like a waterbed, so to speak, and went in there and got that little girl, she saw it. And she didn't tell that part. But she defended him. She went downtown with him. She said she didn't know the girl was there last night, and other than that, she don't know. She was the defense asked her, weren't you fighting with police, saying why are they using him, making him a suspect and defending him. She was like, yeah. But now you say you saw Breasia at his car at 3 o'clock in the morning. And she a lie saying she didn't see him get that machete out that closet. What else he got out the closet? It's already determined he didn't get a gun. I think he had that gun in his RV. This dude was waiting for his perfect chance to do everything he wanted to do to a child. And he knew what he wanted to do was going to be so damaging that he had no other choice but to kill him. And probably kill him in order to do it. Because they're going to be fighting. And I believe Brea's fault. If we'd have found that girl body before it was reduced to bones, we would have saw how she fought. He shot that girl 3 times.
He then requested a new attorney again on February 25th in a letter, claiming his attorneys were not willing to put in the work on his case and that he'd rather represent himself, which is where they picked up today in the...
Listen, when I paused the court that I'm watching now, and I just had to jump on here and do a video, and I'm about to start lifting weights while I finish watching it, y'all. I can't... The dude, they was pausing for something, and he was fixing his hair. They need to shave them bald. If you are in there for killing a child and violating a child, you don't get hair. You don't get hair. That dude was in there fixing his hair. I can feel everything I ate yesterday getting ready to come up and go all over this phone, looking at him, just thinking about imagining Breasia putting her locks in a style. She can't do that no more. Y'all, I got locks. She can't move them out her way. She can't put them in a ponytail. She can do her basketball. She can't go to the salon. Y'all see her locks laid? She can't get them done in no style no more. And they were long too. We don't have any I don't have any pictures of her with her latest length with her hair down. But I can tell her hair was long. And he had short hair when this happened. And he got to grow his hair long in jail. And he's sitting in court and he's fixing his hair. A girl in her hair. Breasia would not be in the mirror no more with her hair. Nobody be saying, oh, I love your locks. I love your crown, queen. Man, I get that all the time. Nobody gonna be saying that to her. It's not no day that I don't go nowhere that many people don't be saying I love your locks. But now I got to think about Bridge, you're not gonna hear that. It's a feeling, it's something. Even if I get, these things, sometimes I'll be like, I should just cut them off. And people do that. And before I didn't understand it, I'm starting to understand it now. Because it's something you got to live with. Putting on your shirt, trying to put on your bra, trying to put on... And I'm like the grandma, forget that bra, man. Your locks get caught up in this, you got to put it up, get it out the way, and then you can't pull it too tight at the scalp, and that's hard to do, and then it gets heavy, the thicker and longer it gets. It's just all that, accidentally pulling it, weighing heavy on you, just making you sweat more, but then you go out and everybody's admiring your crown. And you're like, oh, okay, okay, now, see how you did? See how you did? You had me mad at you there for a second. I'm going to keep you a little longer. You know? She not going to get that. But this dude in there playing with his hair. We're not going to see how far this girl can go in sports and whatever else. She not going to ever go have prom. She not going to get married. She not going to travel. She not going to make her market impact on the world outside of this case. And this case cannot begin and end with this dude violated and killed her and had his trial. You go online, and this is with most victims. You see more of the offender than you do the victim. His ugly mug. Fat, greasy. Okay.
In the courtroom, Puentes co-counsel Kyle Werby told the judge that they have tried calling Dinkins on 3 separate occasions and they've been unable to reach him. Scott County Attorney Michael Walton stated that he believed Dinkins was trying to prolong the trial.
How hard is it to reach somebody who in jail? They don't want to come to the phone. It was hard to reach him when the girl was missing. By everybody. The mama couldn't reach him. She knew what it was. That's why she sat on that sidewalk crying and saying her daughter, she literally said that same day, Asia is dead and I can't even talk to him. What you think he gonna say to you? He told, she trying to blame me.
Dinkins was then given the opportunity to speak, in which he stated he wants to represent himself because he's not given the proper representation.
To me, it appears that you're just frustrating the whole situation.
If y'all want to pursue it and continue forward, we don't have to change no names. I'll just represent myself. I don't need counsel then.
That can be filed at a separate time. I am denying the request for new counsel as I find that you have not cooperated with your attorneys.
Court ended with Judge Lantham telling Dinkins he urges him to talk to his attorneys and to reconsider representing himself due to the seriousness of his charges. Morgan. Darby, thank you. Henry Dinkins' trial date is currently set for May.
That's a cute wig.
Holiday savings don't get any bigger than a...
You done. Thank you. All right. Do we got anything here we want? No, because they just breaking down what happened in the video. Okay. She need to go to jail. Her, Andrea, and Grandma need to be charged. They have the criminal liability to charge them. It is Iowa law that if anyone allows a child that is within their care to be subject to a monster, because that's what we call them, monsters, then that is child endangerment. Why are they not pursuing this? You can do 2 things at the same time. They don't have any intentions on pursuing this. They're not even questioning them in a manner that holds them any responsibility. And it can't be from fear of losing a case. You got a judge on it. It's going nowhere. The judge knows how to separate and not start to say, oh, well, maybe it wasn't his fault. Maybe it was their fault. The judge he's not a jury. He's not a common person. He's a lawman. He understands. I don't feel no sympathy for this woman. It's impossible. It's impossible. Women need to understand that the times of sticking by these monsters, covering up for these monsters, and handing children over to these monsters, and getting to walk around as if you some kind of victim or you don't have any hand in this. Those days are over. Those days are over. If you don't know better, you better learn better. And if you don't know how to learn better, you better get on Google and start to find out. your mama dropping the ball with you and so on and so forth, that don't got nothing to do with this little girl. Because if she wasn't handed over to that monster by this woman and her mother, and if look at how many avenues there was that could have saved her. The grandmother could have stopped her from going, or she could have called her mom and said, she going out the door with him. I know she won't be there with her brother, but I think you should go get her. I don't think you should leave her with him. The mama should have not been okay with it and went and got her daughter. You need a break? You got it. You got it, B. Now, damage is done to her son. That's the only people to feel sorry for. Bridget and her brother. He was the only one out of these biddies that even showed contempt for this dude. He had some real heat for the dude on the stand, and let's just 10, 11 years old. This would have been the best brother ever, man. People would kill. Some of us would kill to have a brother like that. He got on that stand and he did a wonderful job. A wonderful job considering how angry he was getting. And he was able to use his words and say, you're making me angry. You're making me upset. He didn't shut down completely, even though he wanted to. He reeled himself in at all times he needed to. And he addressed the defender, not the dad. Whoever coached him, and I'm assuming it's the woman, the prosecutor, that keeps saying, and I broke her down. She's a wonderful prosecutor. Some people just have a speech pattern habit that is about them. That's probably an official word for it. She does it a lot. It's so much so I don't even really pay that no attention no more because it's going nowhere. And you know why it's easy to overlook? Because she's doing a good job. She's doing good at her job. She's not incompetent at all. I don't care how many she says. It's followed up by intelligence. She is on point on this trial. And even though the boy said he saw him shoot his sister, notice how the prosecution, in my opinion, took consideration of the damages that has been done to him and what he's going through. And they didn't press that. They thought it would be more wise to just let him testify and not press that. Then the defense tried to press it. And the boy doubled down on it, but we saw how it was triggering for him. And you got to give them their props for that, because it's important to not try and trigger him more than he already is triggered by the whole thing. He said he didn't like talking about it. He did great to sit up there and testify. He did great. I didn't like the fishing testimony of it. But in my opinion, this was a long time ago. If you have people really sitting around you acting like they don't know this dude a monster and he did this, and then you have somebody telling you, oh, he didn't do XYZ, then you start to say, well, maybe he was fishing. he told me that he was fishing with his buddies. 6 of them. So over the years, before when he didn't see a pole, now he saw a pole and he saw the fishing buddies. And he saw him attempting to fake like he was fishing. I don't believe his story now about fishing is correct. I believe his story then about fishing is correct. That he said he was going to go down there and fish while the boy sat in the car. Why would you not fish with your boy? That is a pure bonding moment. Let me show you how to, do this thing. See what we can catch. You leave him in the car while you doing everything. You left him in the living room while you was with his sister. You completely neglected your own child so that you can have your way with and do away with his sister. And convince him of a lie, so much so to where that boy came out there that morning and was telling the same story that man was telling. It only makes sense that he eventually said, well, maybe he was fishing. And he know that man won't fishing. He know exactly what he did. And when the prosecutor pressed, it came out. He shot my sister. This woman is a direct cause, or indirect cause, of what happened to her children. And when I look at this face, I can only imagine what happened to her. I can only imagine what happened to the grandma. But the buck got to stop somewhere. We can't keep excusing and being understanding about women allowing things to happen because they weren't taught any different. And it happened to them. We got to make it normal for you to understand I should have been protected, and that's my job from now on. And if you don't know better, we're going to show you how to know better. Because you're going to be held responsible. Andrea need a lie detector test. I don't even know who to say is the worst one, but I have to say Andrea. If I was to say any of them, I have to say Andrea. And that's not even her child, but I have to say Andrea. She was right there. She knew what he was doing. That's why she got sick to her stomach. She knew what was going on. There's no possible way you could have thought that he was going to just bring that girl back after he got through with her. And expect everybody to just act like it didn't happen. And even if her dumb ass did, that was a risk she took at the expense of that little girl's life. You 3 worthless beings get to walk around here while that little girl is gone. So the state plans on seeking habitual offender enhanced sentencing for Dinkins based on those charges and past felony convictions, according to court documents. And as I read, they cannot defer that. It has to be done. That's law. If convicted as a habitual offender, Dinkins will have to remain in confinement for at least 3 years. Do y'all hear 3 years? Because I heard 3 years. If y'all don't get on this, get these laws more stricter. The state of Illinois also wants Dinkins, after he failed to appear in court in April on 2019 on drug charges. Now, which time he went to jail that she stopped seeing and talking to him, I don't know, but I don't think it was 2019. But then again, no, she said in court it was the last time he went to jail. That's the last time they spoke. So maybe it was. And they let him back out. Wait, no, he failed to appear. In that case, he was charged with delivery or possession with intent to deliver over 900 grams of methamphetamine and manufacturing and delivering, or the intent to deliver over 200 grams of amphetamine. So we now know how he was getting his money. At least one way he was getting his money. He will not be extradited to Illinois until his pending charges in Iowa are settled, court documents indicate. Well. If Dinkins is convicted of first-degree murder, he will be sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, which is a mandatory sentence in Iowa. Now, y'all need to do some research on that, because these are words. Without the possibility of parole sounds real good to naive ears. But that don't mean they might consider letting this dude out one day. Here it is, plain as day. We know his address now. The Scott County Jail in Davenport, Iowa, in Scott County. He was born in 72, 51 years old. I have a deceased brother who was born in 72. And he died last year at the age of 50. And he was a monster too. And not only am I glad he dead, I'm glad he laid on the floor in his house dead for days before anybody found him. Bloated and suffering. Henry, let's hope and pray that you don't ever get out of jail and you are treated exactly how you should be treated while you in there. I wonder if they put offenders in jail together. That should be a law too, right? I got another picture of her. That should be a law that they can't be put near each other. So they won't be able to say, hey man, they need to be put where they know the jailers don't like that. Because people say, oh, he gonna get this and that in prison. It's plenty of people in prisons down with exactly what he down with. So don't dance and parade just yet. I'm glad the judge is taking his time. This trial went on for about 2 weeks. Long hours. There was a lot talked about. He got a lot to go over. He also doesn't want there to be room for Henry to be able to possibly get an appeal. When his appeal, we may hear the verdict next week, but we ain't in no rush. We are not in a rush. Just like he took the time to let her sit out there so her body can decompose, the judge needs to kick back and take his time. I started to look up the judge, look at his previous cases, his track record, his political beliefs. I don't even want to do that. Just wait and see. But one thing I am happy about, Henry was a fool for picking a judge to decide this case. We'd be on pins and needles right now if it was a jury. We'd be on pins and needles. A jury would be sitting in there talking about, well, we can't say beyond a shadow of a doubt. We don't have, DNA in the car and all that. It was a year later. Over a year. Don't have sightings of him literally with. Do y'all understand how many people showed up for this girl? The cops, other people we can't see. The brother came through. The brother put that battery in that phone. The brother was with him and got to say, this where we went. Come on, let me show you. This is what he did. They found it. The man who is now deceased. I watched his interview. And he was saying he didn't sense nothing bad about Henry. He even said Henry didn't look so big. And his ham hog eating self. What's the name? What's the channel? I can't think of her channel, but I watched a video of her. She said she called him ham hog. It's stuck. It's up and it's stuck. That's his name now, ham hogs. But that man said he didn't see bad in him or nothing like that. He helped him get his car. His car got stuck in the muddy parts of the lake. And he jumped in front of this man's car because he knew he had to get out of that area. If that man would have never got him, he would have still been stuck. But look at how it happened. The man helped him out of there. And he even came through to testify. Came and made a statement. And he said a friend of his wife sent him the article. And he said, I remember a guy jumping out in front of my car saying he needed me to help him get his car from being stuck. He had a white aux cord charger in his car. Why he thought about that aux cord, why it stuck out to him, I don't know. But he clearly was checking Dodo Bird out. And I think that's to assess whether or not this is a setup. He's a danger. Should I be worried about him trying to hit me over the head once I get his car? Anything. So he probably was assessing everything because he could pretty much tell what he had on, although some of it wasn't accurate to what they feel like he had on. But mind you, Andre admitted that this dude changed clothes and he was to his RV, so we don't even know how many times this guy probably changed clothes. He described his car. He knew for sure that was the Impala. He said he might have had on a gold chain. He didn't recall the glasses or the do-rag, but he pretty much felt like Henry was he didn't really sense him as being a bad guy. He didn't seem like he was nervous other than his car. I believe Henry was freaking out when that car got stuck. One thing I don't recall is them mentioning the boy when he said he got the car out. Where was the boy? Did y'all think about that? That man didn't mention the little boy being with him. So he got stuck before he went and picked up the boy and went back out there. Could Breasia have still been alive when he got stuck? Because why you shoot her? After you got the boy, why you shoot her? She had to be alive. Can you imagine this man probably helped this dude get his car from being stuck, and there was a hurt girl laying over there dying, and he didn't even know it? And he came forth and put his testimony out there and put that man in that mud before he even died. And they read, did y'all see when they read his testimony? Man, this whole trial got me. Oh, did y'all see when, I wish I had that clipped. It was masterful. Masterful. They had a guy, I think one of the detectives on the case, and they role played. They brought him in. Everybody got a copy of the script of the actual interview that we saw on video. And the man came up there and he sat down and he swore in to be the dead guy. And not the prosecution. The defense started first. And they read the script of the actual conversation that they had. And if you didn't know any better, you would think that these two people were talking to each other. But they were reading a testimony. That dead man was speaking through another guy on stand. And the defense attorney started asking him, how you doing today? Your wife? They was talking about the man's wife, and he was talking about his birthday or something. How old was he? Yeah, I think that was the question. And he said 40 something. He said, my wife tells me I'm 48. And he said, oh, your wife wants you to be older? This is the conversation they had. And these two were sitting in court having this conversation, and it sounded like it was between them two. I had to reel myself back in and be like, this man ain't talking about himself. This is the man who died of a heart attack, who pulled him out of the ditch. This is his testimony. And it flowed. And then we got the prosecutor. It was her turn to read some. And then you knew she reading the script. That woman, she didn't do too hot. She had her moms in there, and she was messing up words and losing her lines and reading all off. Once she started reading, you're like, okay, they reading the testimony. But when the defense attorney and that man was reading, you thought they was sitting down having a beer. I was like, damn. You can't question, cross-examine, nothing. It's all there. And his testimony was clear and it was accurate. He was there. I helped him get out the ditch. Not one time did they mention a boy. Now, the police didn't know at that time to even ask him if the boy was in the car. So the defense or the prosecution couldn't come back and say, did you see the little boy with him? Did you have a little boy? Which would have been a great question to be able to ask, but they can't because he's dead. And the flip flop. Can we? Y'all talking about that chair? I'm still waiting on my decal to come in. Actually, I ordered a chair decal to go on my car. I really wanted Swimmy Turner, but they ain't made one yet that I know of. Y'all talking about the chair? How about that flip flop? That need to be her little thing. The flip flop. Do y'all remember when the mama and them was outside and they brought a picture of a flip flop? And her and other members said, no, that's not her flip flop. Do y'all remember when the mama was on the stand and they asked her to describe the clothing and shoes that she took to them? And when they got to the shoes, she said she had 2 pair of flip flops and she described them. Do y'all remember that they said over a year later, out there at that pond, they found 1 flip flop? You big dummy, Henry. You big dummy. That flip flop ain't playing. Okay? That's how you say Chanceletta? He got his butt whooped with it. Okay? A whole year and some change later, he got his butt whooped with that same flip flop. So you left her clothes out there. And you left her shoe out there. Well, good for you, Henry. Good for you. Good for you. Drop the soap. Do drop it. Do drop it. Cause I'm a have hopeful. I'm gonna be hopeful like other people. That there's gonna be some people in prison that's gonna say, "Oh, so you like violating, huh? Your turn." Take your time, Judge. Take your time. And do it right.